We will explore self-pep reading part 3 and part 4 in today's video. Okay, like what these two parts test, how to think in each part, what strategy to use, what traps to avoid. Then I'll be giving you some examples with explanations. So let's begin with part 3 first. Part 3 in reading, we call it as reading for information. It contains 9 questions in the self-pep reading test. Now, the name sounds simple, reading for information, right? It sounds like, okay, maybe I just read something and answer some questions. But no, this is where the reading starts becoming more layered. In this part, you usually get an informational passage. That means the text is not really an email like part 1 and is not a pure opinion battle like part 4. Instead, it is usually explaining something, describing something, comparing some information, or presenting several pieces of related information in a very structured way. So, what is this part really testing? It is testing whether you can understand the main idea of the whole passage, the main idea of each paragraph, how details support the main point, how ideas are organized, and how answer choices are paraphrased. And this paraphrasing point is very important because self-help does not usually copy the exact words from the passage into the correct answer. Very often, the right answer is saying the same thing but in different words. That is why students read the passage, then read the options, and suddenly say, but I did not see this exact sentence. So here you're not supposed to match exact words all the time. You have to match the meaning. Official self preparation material also emphasizes identifying the topic of the whole reading and the main idea of each paragraph. Okay? So let me now give you the best mindset for part 3. Don't read part 3 like a school textbook chapter. Do not sit there trying to observe every single word perfectly from the beginning. That is too slow. And in the self-pep exam, slow reading becomes dangerous. Instead, I want to use that I call the map match method. Yes, kindly make a note of it. I'll tell you how it works. First, you have to quickly skim the passage and then you have to create a mental map, not a full summary, just a map. So you should know what is paragraph 1 mainly about, what is paragraph 2 mainly about, what is paragraph 3 mainly about, and what is the general topic of the whole text. That is enough for the first read. Then when you look at the questions, you know where to go back, right? Because one of the biggest mistakes students make is that they keep rereading the whole passage again and again for every question. That wastes time and also creates confusion. So instead, try to build a map first. Then you can match each question to the right area. Another important thing is part 3 is often about information structure. That means sometimes the answer is not just one sentence. Sometimes the correct answer depends on understanding how one paragraph connects to another. So you always need to ask yourself, what is the writer explaining here? What is the function of this paragraph? Is this paragraph introducing the topic, giving an example, giving a benefit, or giving a problem, or is it suggesting a recommendation? So once you start thinking like that, this section becomes much easier. So you can pause the video, kindly read it by yourself. Okay. Now, before we go to the questions, let me show you how a strong student thinks. If you're thinking like, oh no, this is long. No, a strong student thinks, okay, what is my map now? Paragraph 1, it talks about the popularity and social benefit. Paragraph 2, it talks about environmental and educational benefits. Paragraph 3, challenges and disagreements. And paragraph 4, continued support from city planners and municipal help. Now, the passage already feels smaller, right? So, that is exactly the point I'm going to tell. Now, let's do the questions. What is the main purpose of the passage? You have 4 options. Go through that and then you have to think about the question. So here we should not look at one paragraph, right? You should ask what does the whole passage do? So the passage talks about popularity, benefits, challenges, support. So it is explaining the rise of community gardens and discussing their effects. So which is the correct option of option A? Option B is too strong, but the passage does not argue the garden should replace commercial development. Okay. Option C is not at all supported. Option D is wrong because the passage is not mainly about history. Option A is the right answer. And the question two, according to the passage, why do some researchers value community gardens? The correct option is option C, because you have to eliminate the other answers. A is the opposite of what the passage suggests, and B is nowhere mentioned. And C is the right answer. D is definitely not mentioned. So if you apply that eliminate strategy for each options, the right one is option C. This one is very straightforward, but you should know where to look for that. Okay. Now let's move on to the next part, part 4. Okay, part 4 is all about reading for viewpoints, and it contains 10 questions. This part is different from part 3 in a very, very important way. Because if you see part 3, it mostly deals with information, right? But here it deals with your opinions, positions, perspective, arguments, and reasoning. That means you are not just reading to find facts anymore. No, you are reading to understand who believes what, why they believe it, which evidence supports each viewpoint, where the writer agrees or disagrees, and whether a statement is presented as fact or whether it has been presented as an interpretation or opinion. So, this is why part 4 feels heavier. Yes, it is not always because the vocabulary is impossible, it's because the thinking load is higher here. Okay, now whenever you do part 4, you cannot just ask, what does this sentence say? You have to ask, whose opinion is this? Is this a fact or claim? Is the writer neutral or learning somewhere? What is the purpose of this paragraph in the argument? Okay, now I'm going to give you the best strategy. I call it as a voice and position method. So before worrying about details, you have to identify the voices. Who is speaking? Is there one writer presenting two sides? Are there two different people with opposing viewpoints? Is the passage comparing one opinion with the other? Then you can identify the position of each voice, like what does person A support, person B oppose or support, what reason does each side give. So once you do that, passage becomes much more manageable. Okay, now let's move on to the example here. This is about digital services. Should public libraries focus more on digital services? Okay, so here you can see the viewpoints about different people. If you want, you can just pause it and kindly go through it. Then we can go back to the questions. Okay. The question here is, what is the main issue discussed in the passage? The option 4 are given here. And the right option is option B. Let me tell you why. Because this is the overall topic questions, right? The passage is clearly discussing whether libraries should focus more on digital services and how that should be balanced, which is clearly given in option B. So option B is the right answer. And the question 2 is, according to supporters of digital expansion, what is one advantage of online services? Okay, and the options, four options they have given here. The right option is option C. Yes, this comes from paragraph 2. Very simple reason. The passage specifically says online services may help libraries reach people who have limited mobility or live far from library locations, if you see here. Okay. And the third question, what concern do critics have about increasing digital services too much? The right option is option B, because paragraph 3, if you go back and see, says not everyone has reliable internet access or feels comfortable using technology. And it says libraries are also community spaces where people study, attend programs, seek personal assistance. So that is exactly given in B. Okay, so that's the right option. So remember, part 4 is where CELPIP wants to know whether you can handle arguments, not just information. So don't read it like a list of facts, read it like a conversation of ideas. Ask yourself who supports what, who's worried about what the final position of the passage. So once you're able to separate the voices, the passage stops feeling heavy. That sounds natural, right? So that's all for today's video. Kindly like, share, and subscribe for more self-help tips. See you in the next video. Bye bye.